Well, I think the two most important times in anybody's life is the moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. So that's part of it. I ask this question all the time, Matt. I say to people, so why don't people get what they want in life? Well, there's a story you tell yourself of why you can or you can't have it, right? I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. Don't have the background. And that's a story. Like one of the things that I do when I'm at my seminars, I put a picture of a guy behind me if I can, and he's standing in a location, right? And I don't say anything about it. I go over 20, 25 minutes, and then I'll say, by the way, who here could tell me where my friend's standing? And there's inevitably somebody raise their hand and go, Mount Everest. I go, that's correct. Now, here's what you need to know about Eric. He has climbed the 7 highest mountains on Earth, and he got to the summit of all 7. But here's what you don't know about Eric. He's blind.
Hey guys, I'm here with my great friend Dave Albin, and he's going to share his journey of addiction to breakthrough and how he's been able to change and transform the lives of so many across the world. Check it out. Dave Albin.
Matt Shoup.
And welcome to the podcast,
man. Thanks for having me, man. This is so cool. I've waited for this, man.
Back in town again. I was just thinking back. We usually open up, everybody that's out here, we've had a lot of guests that I've known for a long time. We're going on a decade of knowing each other.
Yeah, for sure.
And 2013, I went out to Atlantic City to speak at it was a regional EO, Entrepreneurs Organization event. And they're like, the big speaker there is Dave Sanderson. It was the guy on the Miracle on the Hudson flight. And he's spoken, 5,000 times at that point?
A whole bunch.
And I have to speak after him. Like I have to follow up Dave Sanderson, who just knocks it out of the park, right? Like professional, high class, amazing story.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, win some business awards, right? So it was just surreal. It was really cool to share that stage with him. And then we became buds. And we started talking. He was sharing his background with Tony Robbins and then brings your name up. And then that's how we met.
Right.
But man, you got just such a cool story that can help so many people. What you're doing in the world is just amazing. So just kind of take us back, man. How did you get to where you are today? Maybe share some of the highlights and fun times we've had together.
Well, it has to go all the way. If we're going to go back, I got to go back to, a couple of months before I was born, because that was a pivotal point, right? A couple months before I'm born, my biological father, and you know what, Matt, we don't know what happened to him. We just know that he was in a lot of pain, and he'd hurt his head, and they put a plate in his head to save his life, and it also took his life because the pain was bad. This is 53, 54, right? And so he used to complain to Mom all the time, I don't know how much longer I can take this. 2 months before I'm born, he turns to Mom and says, I'm going to the grocery store. Never saw or heard from him again. And luckily for me, as I grew up, I made some good decisions about that. I never blamed him. I wasn't mad. I was disappointed because I've never got to see a picture of my dad. I never met him, nothing, right? And because of that decision, something happened to me years later that was pretty phenomenal. Dave Jr. and I are out at our favorite restaurant. And you know me when I'm in a restaurant, I'm always treating the servers. My mom was a single mom right when I'm born. And so she worked at the Hollywood Hotel, the Roosevelt there, right? And so she taught me about servers and how important their job and treat them with love and kindness and respect. So I've always done that. And I learned some stuff from Tony Robbins on that too. So I'm always having fun. I'm doing that. And Davey and I are sitting there and we're eating our seafood and we're treating, we're having a great time. And all of a sudden I look at, gosh, I hope I can get through this, man. I look at Davey and I look down and all of a sudden I realize, oh my God, I'm having dinner with my dad's grandson. And so for the first time, I could see my dad in my son's eyes. Whew, powerful moment in my life. And again, that came because I gave good meaning to, I wasn't there. I don't know what kind of pain he was in. You don't know. And so I went at it from that standpoint. And so, when I was born, we were all living in a one-bedroom apartment in Hollywood. There was me, my 2 stepbrothers, because my mom had 2 boys from another marriage, and then my cousin and my grandmother. So there were 6 of us living in a one-bedroom apartment. And, Mom's working up the street at the Roosevelt as a server. Man, she's working hard. because people from that generation all worked hard. I believe I got raised by the greatest generation that's ever walked the planet. I'm talking about the generation that came through the Great Depression. I'm talking about the generation that navigated World War II. While half of the men in the world in the U.S. were in Germany fighting the Nazis, the other half, like my best friend's dad, was in the Navy in Pearl Harbor. And so, I talked a little bit about this once in a while as just from the standpoint of, what do you think women were doing when all that was going down? They were doing everything, right? They did everything, man. They made munitions and jeeps and tanks and the USO and all the medical and my mom was known as Rosie the Riveter, man. She was out on a B-17 wing driving rivets, building airplanes. So they were a pretty tough crowd, That's why baby boomers are the way we are, right?
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, she tried really hard. And by the time I was 5 years old, Matt, one day she said, I can't feed him. So she went to her oldest sister, Pat, and said, hey, Pat, I can't feed David anymore. Would you and Bob, her husband at the time, still was for that matter, will you adopt David? And Pat said, yeah, absolutely. So they adopted me when I was 5. So they moved me from Hollywood, California to Long Beach. And this is Bob Albin again. He was a highly decorated officer, World War II, career military, Army, National Guard. So we had a nice house, right? We always had everything. I mean, we went camping. We really had a wonderful life. And I don't remember much about it other than it was just like this geographical change in my life. I was over there, and the next thing I know, I'm young, I'm 5 years old, I'm over there. And they were really awesome, man. They were fantastic. And one day that all changed. On the first day of summer, 1964, it's the first day of summer. You know how you are when you're a kid, right? Here we go. It's summertime, man. I'm sitting in the TV room. I'm probably eating, I don't know, Captain Crunch or something, right? And my mom comes in, Pat comes in, and she goes, David, come in the kitchen. Your father and I need to speak with you. I'm like, yeah, cool. Because here's what I think is going to happen. They're going to tell us where we're going camping. Because we would go camping in Yosemite and Big Bear and Lake Arrowhead, all over Southern Cal, right? And I sit down at the kitchen table, and Bob's here and Pat's there, mom and dad. I'm going to reference them as mom and dad. And Pat puts her hands on my arm like this, and she looks at me with tears in her eyes. She goes, David, we need to tell you something. And what we need to tell you is we're not your parents. What? What does that mean? What do you mean you're not my parents? Of course you're my parents. And so she started telling me some of the backstory, and then she went on to like my mom. She goes, your Aunt Dean? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, she's actually your biological mother.
So what you know now, what you're sharing now, you did not know at the time?
No, I had no clue.
Okay. Because how old were you at this point when she grabbed your arm and having this conversation?
It's 1964, so what am I, 10?
Okay.
I'm in 4th grade. I'm going in, that's the summer of going into 4th grade, right?
So bomb drop.
And so Pat's going, your mom's actually your Aunt Dean, right? And I'm going, I don't even like her. And I say that in the ways like, because anytime when she was around me, Matt, she wanted to be around me, right? She wanted to sit right next to me. She wanted to hold me. She wanted to hug me. She wanted to be there around me. Well, duh, I'm her son. But I didn't know that. I just thought she was my weird aunt. And when I say weird, I don't mean that in any, disrespectful way at all. It's like it was never anything weird, right? It was just like she was just like really manic every time she was around me. She took advantage of it, right? She wanted to be around me. And so that's kind of how that all went down. And then shortly after they told me this, within a couple of months, they both started drinking. They had sworn off drinking at 5 years old when they adopted me, 5 years earlier, right? There was no alcohol. And then all of a sudden, boom, they both started drinking. And they were completely different in terms of their drinking and who they were and the substance of who they were and, how they acted out. And Pat was kind of like a funny drunk. She would pass out at the kitchen table and she wasn't really violent at all. Bob, ooh, nasty, mean, evil. Yeah. And he came through World War II. As I look back, we didn't know what PTSD was back then, but that's what he had. He saw a lot of stuff. He had a Purple Heart and he had a Silver Star and a Bronze Star and stuff. So I don't know what the man saw. He never really talked to me much about that. But man, when he drank, he was not a fun guy to be around. So that all started. Well, one day back then, right, when you raised kids, you could leave them home And they would go to the grocery store and just leave the kids at home.
Leave them like all day.
Leave them all day. Sure. Big deal. You know what you do? You call the neighbor across the street and say, hey, Joanne, Bob and I are leaving. David's home. If he needs anything, can he come across the street and knock on the door? Yeah, you can do that. And so they left. And I knew I was waiting for this moment because I wanted to know what it was that they were drinking. How is these two people turning into these other people when they drink this stuff? So I'm curious. And as soon as they left, man, I kind of waited, and sure enough, I went and got myself a coffee cup. When they were hiding it in plain sight, right? And I poured it into a coffee cup about halfway, and down it went. Brandy at 10 years old. It's like, whoa. But I never had a chance, man.
Nope.
I was an alcoholic right on the spot because I started acting out.
What happened at that moment?
Well,
other than just
it was like
burning
rocket
your whole
fuel.
body, right?
It's like rocket fuel. It's like, oh my God, I became this superhuman kind of a thing, if you will. So I say I never had a chance. I believe as an alcoholic right there on the spot, man. And then I started chasing it. And then from there, one thing led to another, right? I went from the drinking part of it to, it wasn't too much longer that probably in a couple of years, drugs showed up. And by the time I was a junior, and remember, I'm 10, right? So a few years later, by the time I was a junior in high school, they called me in the principal's office one day and said, Albin, out, you're done, you're expelled. I'm like, cool, this is great. I didn't care. It's like, I didn't think that getting kicked out of high school was going to mean anything to me, right? Because it's like, I don't care. I was already an entrepreneur at that point, meaning that, when I was a kid growing up, I lived across the street from a golf course, right? And so I was riding my Stingray bicycle through the park one day, and all of a sudden, bink, this ball hit the street and bounced over my head, the golf ball. I was like, what was that? And I rode over and I picked it up, and then the next thing I know, here come the golfers on the other side of the fence of the golf course that buddied right up against the park, right? And the guy goes, hey, buddy, bring me that ball, I'll give you a quarter. What? Okay, yeah. And a quarter? In what, 1964?
It's like $5 now, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I could go eat a whole meal
all day.
at the Burger King, right? Or that wasn't the Burger King. It's called the Burgermeister, not too far from where I lived in Long Beach, California. And so I went, well, there's got to be others. And so I started looking and scouting, and I started shagging golf balls is what we called it. We found them. And I took them home, and I'd wash them up and clean them. I went back to the golf course, and they have boxes, right, that the new balls, and they threw them out. And I took those boxes and I took all the balls I found and I lined them up, right? Went back into the parking lot of the golf course. And you know what I started doing, man? I started selling balls back to the golfers.
That's gangster, criminal, and entrepreneurial all at the same time. And then you went home and just were hitting the booze.
Yeah.
Right? Man, dang.
But the other part was too, though, is that the entrepreneurial side of it was Mom grew beautiful flowers in the backyard. Oh my gosh. Of course, she grew up the Great Depression, where she was the oldest of all the kids. So back, you had to learn how to grow food or you didn't eat, right? So she knew everything about horticulture, if you will. She taught herself, self-taught. And she grew the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen in the backyard. And Pat would go and she'd cut them, and she cut them at an angle, right? Not at the bottom. She cuts them at an angle. And I found out later that what that does, it opens up the surface area for the flower to get more water up in it. It would last longer. And then she would match them up. She had a beautiful eye for color, and she'd bind them up. She'd put them in a bucket, go sell them on the streets, kid. And I noticed that the last thing she would do is when she put them in the bucket, she'd pour about maybe a half a bottle of 7-Up. And I'm guessing what that did is the sugar would get up into the flower, but they'll outlast any other flower 3-1. So the florist up the street, my flowers were outlasting the florist. And so I became the kid on the corner to go buy flowers from.
The flowers, golf balls.
Oh, and I had the paper route. So that was a seven day a week job, right? You had to go get your papers and fold them and put them on your saddlebags, and you threw them, man. You delivered them. So you had to collect the money. You had to do all that. So it was a full-time job. So my point of all that is when I got kicked out of high school, I was like, I don't care. There's money out there. Go get it.
Yep.
That's what I learned, hustling at a young age. And it was true, still true today. Welcome to the world of entrepreneurship.
It was like kind of cute, funny, adorable all at the same time. So we're down at this entrepreneurs organization event, and you're sharing this story. Yeah. And usually EO events, it's all the grown-ups and the adults. And, we're kind of sitting around campfire style. And the front row is all kids between like 4 or 5 years old to 10, 12 years old. Yep. And you're just like, there's money out there, kids, go get it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And they were watching me, man, and I knew it. And I was waiting for that moment because I wanted to implant that in those kids' heads. Mm-hmm. Hey, he was, He had a paper route. He sold flowers. He shagged golf balls. Yeah, there's money out there. Go get it.
Yep.
And they loved it. And the parents loved it too because they're entrepreneurs. Because I said right after that, by the way, we're all entrepreneurs. We're not employable.
No, not at all.
It ain't going to happen.
Not at all.
No.
Man, so growing up, I mean, you got to have just like abandonment and frustration and like pain and loss, and now you're drinking drugs, entrepreneurial, and honored to have your story in Painted Baby. I mean, I always love when you share that moment that we opened up with in Painted Baby. Man, love to go there, and because your life took a big turn there, and I know what happened after that's been a huge part of your life for almost 4 decades now, right? 36, 38?
36.
Yeah, man. Are you a small business trying to navigate all of the landscape of digital marketing and don't know where to go? Reach out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. They are the go-to source for all things digital marketing. They are the producers of this podcast, and they run all of the marketing for all of my companies. Check them out at imprint-digital.com. Is the paint or roof on your home or business starting to look a little shabby? If so, reach out to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D Painting and Roofing is a full-service residential and commercial painting and roofing contractor in Northern Colorado. And full disclosure, I'm the M in M&D. Check them out at mdepainting.com.
I was in my third marriage to move this forward, and the third wife, she was a bartender. That was convenient. Right. But the reason I married her, one of the things I was attracted to, she had 3 kids. And I thought, you know what, if I marry her, maybe I'll get my life together. Maybe I wanted to be a dad. But it was, the alcohol and drugs are just pulling you in so many different directions. And I woke up on June 8th and that was it, man. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm grossly addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes. And as I said last night at the event, and chocolate chip cookies. All right, so fine. I still got a problem with chocolate chip cookies, but I don't have any court dates because of chocolate chip cookies. Right? And so that was it. And, it was either, commit suicide or reach out for help. And as I'm contemplating actually taking my life, I remember thinking, you know what, dude, if you pull that trigger, you know what's going to happen. Those 3 kids that you love downstairs, guess what? You're going to destroy their life.
Because you're sitting there with a gun in your hand.
Yeah.
And you're bringing it up.
I'm bringing it up. Yeah. I put it in my mouth twice that morning. But again, it was that moment of compassion where I went, oh, dude, who do you think is going to clean it up when you blow your brains all over the basement? No, you can't do that, man. No, wrong. Find out a better way, pal. Come up with something else. And then the thought came, well, why don't you call Alcoholics Anonymous? And I'm like, you know what's interesting about that, Matt? I didn't even know who AA was. What does that mean? I didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to AA, and yet there was the thought. And so I did. I called Intergroup, and I got this wonderful human being on the end of the phone. Over the years, I've affectionately nicknamed her Madge. And the reason I did is because she talked like this. Right. She's smoking 2 packs of Pall Mall, not filters. And she was a badass, man. She was the gatekeeper, man. So she would interview you. And she would take you through a process. And if she thought you were serious, she'd actually call somebody to come pick you up. Well, that's what she did. She sent Lauren to come pick me up. And this amazing guy. And he came and picked me up, and he took me to my first AA meeting. And I went to 4 meetings that day, right? I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30 to all my brothers out there at the Stepping Stones group of Alcoholics Anonymous. Man, we were all men's group. And I'd never felt so at home anywhere in my life. I felt home in 2 places. One, in a gritty, shitty little bar somewhere where I could hide out and scream and cry and carry on about how bad my life was. Or I could come to an AA meeting and, man, I felt at home. These guys loved me, man, until I could love myself. And so I took to it like a duck to water. And it just worked for me. And so then, what's great about AA is you got the 12 steps, right? And those help put your life back together. You have the 12 traditions that help you how to navigate through the group as a whole. But in the middle, man, it's a sweet spot for me. It was called the preamble. And the preamble says, when anyone anywhere reaches out, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I'm responsible. So I became a gatekeeper, man. When a new guy would walk through that door, I'm like, that dude's life's on the line. And so I just became so passionate and so compassionate about that. And so there I was, man, in AA. And then once I got there, I had insomnia, right? So you know what's coming, right? So I'm up late at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, man. you know,
Eating them chocolate chip cookies.
the chocolate chip cookies, man, and can't sleep. And there it is. There he is, Mr. Enthusiasm, a young, vibrant Tony Robbins, man. There he is, selling personal power. And and to date this, it came on little white things called cassette tapes.
Those are cassette tapes.
Those are cassette tapes, right? Yeah.
Because you're 76 now? 1976 is this the year?
This is 88.
Oh, you're 88. Okay.
88, 1988, 89, right? And so, you know, I did not like Tony. I thought he was a pompous ass when I first listened to him because he's all motivated and encouraging. I'm like, this guy, man, what a jerk, you know? But he said two things that got me, man. The first one he said was, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And I went, dude, are you talking to me? I mean, it felt like he was literally addressing that to me. And because that's what I was doing with drugs and alcohol, right? I was trying to chase some pleasure or get rid of pain, right? So it really resonated with me. But the thing that really got me was he said, how do human beings make decisions? And that was, you know, one of two ways. We're either out of inspiration or desperation. And I went, well, I'm pretty desperate. Maybe I should listen to this guy. And that's when I bought the program. Sent it to me, like I said, in the big box, cassette tapes. And you plugged in one a day, and you did it every day for 30 days. And man, it worked, man. I did exactly what the man told me to do, right? What a concept. And then from there, what happened is I loaned my program to a buddy in AA, to my buddy Dan the Butcher. And I want to mention him because I lost Dan a few months ago. And anyway, so because Dan came to me one day, he goes, dude, what's going on with you? You're like all motivated and you're encouraging and AA. What's going on in your life? I go, I've been listening to this guy by the name of Tony Robbins. And Dan goes, hey, I know who Tony Robbins is. I bought his book, but I never read it. And I go, well, how often does that show up in your life? And so I go, hey, I have this program. You can listen to it. He goes, oh, man, you'll let me borrow it? I go, yeah, absolutely. If you promise me you'll listen to it. He goes, promise. So he did. And he went and he listened to it. And then 7 years later, right? This was all going down in 88, 89. 1995 calls me on the phone. He goes, hey, man, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town? I'm like, no, I had no clue. He goes, dude, come on. You got me into this. We got to go. And I went, okay, well, let's see. Yeah, the dates. Okay, it'll work. He goes, I got you. Let me call you back. I'll make arrangements. He calls me back like an hour later. And he goes, done. We pick up the tickets at will call. Here's what they told us to do. Number one, drink a lot of water because you got to stay hydrated. It's a 4-day event. Number two, bring a lot of snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room, right?
What was he calling those 4 days back then?
It was called UPW.
It was UPW back then. Okay.
It was called Unleash the Power Within, the Firewalk Experience. I didn't know that last part.
You just didn't see
I didn't know. I just, it's UPW. He wants me to go to a live event. I said yes. So he calls me back. Boom. Bring a good attitude. Be ready to play full out. Bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. Yeah, that's an understatement. And then at the end, he's getting off the phone. He goes, oh, wait. Oh, forgot to tell you something. Oh, almost the most important part. We're going to be doing a firewalk. And immediately my brain went, oh, hell no. No, maybe you are, but I'm not. And you know what's interesting about that, Matt? I didn't know what that word. I didn't know what that meant. I'd never been to a firewalk. What does that even mean? But the word fire and walk in the same sentence, fear is controlled in my life all the way up until this point. Everything that I didn't have in my life, fear was probably encouraging me to go in a different direction. And so, but I'm being, I'm not pretending like I'm a coward. I'm going along with Dan going, yeah, sure, Dan, firewalk. Yeah, sounds interesting. No problem. All right, bro, see you then. Hung up and went, no, we ain't doing this firewalk thing. Well, then the big day comes. We get there, 3,500 people. Tony took the stage at like 2:00 in the afternoon. And then there we go, man. And he's talking about the firewalk and what we're going to do. And he's practicing and doing all this. And I'm like, I'm not doing this firewalk thing. I'll go and I'll watch, but I'm not doing it. No, not going to happen. Well, next thing I know, it's after midnight, right? Been there since 2. Now it's after midnight, 10 hours in a room with Tony Robbins.
Yep.
Next thing you know, Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I went, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. Right? I know where you're going with that. You're not going to trick me, dude. Are you kidding me? And all of a sudden, I got a problem. 3,500 people, guess what they're doing? They're taking their damn shoes off. I'm like, people, no, don't go towards the light. And then my buddy's taking his shoes off, right? So I'm like, oh, so what are you not going to do? Take your shoes off and everybody in the whole arena here knows you're a coward? I'm like, just calm down. Here's what we'll do. I'm coming up with my strategy. We'll go out there and then I'll just ditch my buddy and I'll go hide in the back. No one's going to know. Who's going to know? No one's going to know. Well, I'm going to know, right? Yeah. And so, but it gets worse. As we're going out there, Tony gets everybody to start chanting and clapping. So now you got 3,500 people walking out into this big parking lot where they're going to facilitate the firewalk, and they're chanting, yes, yes.
And he's got like drums going, right?
Oh,
like
yeah, right.
African drums and the whole 9 yards, right?
100%.
But you just stepped into like Survivor Island here, right?
Yeah, you go outside and dun, 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 and people are chanting, and I'm thinking, what a dog and pony show this is, right? And so we get out there, and my buddy's only 5'5", so he was real easy to ditch. And so I ditched him. And then I went, hung out in the back, and I'm standing back there, and I've got it all figured out, right? Yep, nobody's going to know. Here we go. Well, Tony Robbins knows that the firewalk is probably one of the greatest, most paradigm shift experiences on earth. He's a smart guy. He brought the firewalk in because he knows. And you know what else he knows? There's people like me.
Yep.
And he knows where we are. So what's he do? The ass, he trains people to come find you. Oh, shit. You got to be kidding me. I'm back there thinking I got it all figured out, and here comes this dude out of nowhere, and he makes eye contact with me. And I know damn good and well that Tony trains him. Once you make eye contact, don't take your eyes off these people. He gets maybe 20 feet from me, 15 feet from me, and he looks at me really funny, kind of tilts his head like there's something wrong. You know, like a dog that hears a funny noise. Say, oh, what's up with you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, hey, man, are you okay? When we're not okay, what do we say? We lie.
Fine.
I'm fine.
Great.
All good. Nothing to see here, pal. Move along. And all of a sudden, he goes right for the kill shot, man. He goes, hey, you going to walk tonight? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you idiot, what do you think? I'm hiding in the back, right? And he's really cool, you know. And what's interesting, you know, man, I don't even know who this guy is. This guy changed my life, who's enabled me to change tens of thousands of people's lives, right? And he said, well, hey, man, you know, because I'm being kind of aggressive with him. No, I'm not doing a damn firewalk. He goes, hey, man, it's cool. No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. I went, oh, okay, I like this guy. Nah, he's tricking me. Because the next question he asked me goes, well, hey, man, would you at least like to watch?
And he put you in line.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll watch, right? And he goes, hey, man, you can't see anything from back here. He goes, just get in line, and eventually you'll get up there close. You'll be able to see it. Because I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see a dang thing. I can hear it. Oh, the drums are going, and people are already firewalking, and they're screaming, yelling, they're celebrating. I mean, and people are still chanting, and oh, man. It's intense. And so I'm just kind of walking along, right? I'm kind of moving along. Can't see anything. I'm hearing it. And all of a sudden, this other guy comes up to me. And he whispers in my ear. He goes, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew! This guy just disappeared into the night. I'm like, what? What does that mean? What do you mean he knows when you're ready? I don't know what that means. And so I'm kind of walking along, right? And all of a sudden I get to this point, and I look, and I can see at an angle. I can't see in front of me. Got 1,000 people, but I can, and they're doing it. And I'm thinking to myself, every race, every creed, every couple, why are they doing this? What's wrong with these people? Why would they do that? We're mammals. We're taught to run from fire, not walk on it. And so now I'm mesmerized. Can't take my eyes off. It's like the car accident that you say you're not going to look at, right? And so I'm watching them, and I'm just kind of trudging along. All of a sudden, boom, there I am. I'm at the front of the line. And all of a sudden, it's like, how the hell did you get here? And I'm looking down, Matt, at the you know, how do they set that up? Well, you build a big fire, and it's like 35 feet by 70 feet, and they add hardwood to it all day, cord after cord of wood. And at the end of the night, after 10 hours, it renders. And so they load those coals in a wheelbarrow.
Big old flaming hot, red coals.
Then they put that wheelbarrow in between two lanes of sod, of grass. Then they just take a flathead shovel, and they sprinkle them on top and pat them down. That's how they get 3,500 people across. They may have, you know, I don't know how many lanes they'll have, right? They could have 35 lanes. It just depends. And so from there, as I'm looking down, I'm like, you know, my heart's beating. The wheelbarrow started. You could feel the heat coming off. It's scary, right? My heart's beating so fast. I know it's going to jump out of my chest. Well, thank goodness there's a trainer standing right there, and he knows what to do. And all of a sudden, he kind of screams at me. He goes, eyes up. And so now I got my eyes up, right? I'm like, oh, okay, that's right. I was in a room for 10 hours with Tony. What did he teach me to do? Don't focus on what you fear. Keep your eyes up. The goal is over there on the other side of the fire lane where you're going to graduate. So now my eyes are up, and the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. I went, yes. Right? And he goes, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell I was not in a peak state. I was leaving a lot on the table, and he knew it, right? So he screamed at me again, got right here, and he said, stronger. So now I'm like fight or flight, right? Threw my hands in the air, screamed as loud as I could, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Boo. I took off. Well, here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I promise you, right? And I don't know, Matt, in that moment, standing down there with all those other people celebrating, it was exhilarating. And in fact, when I first did it, they kind of stop you. They catch you. There's a couple of guys that catch you, and they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm celebrating it. And I thought I burnt myself. And I'm like, right? And I look at my feet, your feet are dirty, but you're not burnt. And it was like, it just comes up through you. It's just such a confidence builder. It's like, wow, I just walked on coals that were 1,000 degrees and I did not burn myself. And I'm like, okay, people, where's the bus? Let's go. Let's get it. Let's go climb Mount Everest, man. Because in that moment, you think you can do anything.
Yeah.
And, but I'll tell you where it got really interesting for me the next day. This is a 4-day event, right? That's day one, that night.
You do it day one. Okay.
That was day one. So now we're coming into day two. There's 3,500 of us at Firewalk the night before together. We're all standing in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. And I was watching people I'm like, look at this, man. Look at how these people are acting. They're hugging. They're laughing. They're crying. I saw people crying. They were talking about their lives. They're talking about the Firewalk. They're talking about their fears. It was just absolutely beautiful. It was so magical to see how humanistically people get along when we're in the right state of mind, right? They're not thinking about, the stuff that we have a tendency to pay attention to today, politically, if you will. None of that's going on. It's just people in the moment appreciating what we did the night before and sharing something so magical. Well, from there, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy, him and his wife, Mary, amazing. And I'm talking to Ted, and here I am talking to one of Tony's trainers, right? It feels good, right? And I'm asking him, and I said, so what's it like being in this environment, Ted? He goes, oh, dude, are you kidding me? Can you imagine being around this all the time? And so he goes, matter of fact, you see those people standing over with the black shirts with the pink writing on the back? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, they're volunteers, man. They're people just like you and I. They came to this event and came back because they want to be immersed in the environment. And he goes, so here's what you do. When you get home, call Robbins and tell them that you want an application to become a volunteer. And I did that. And they sent me an application, filled it out, sent it back. Like 9 weeks later, it said, got a letter in the mail. It said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies. Wow. So there I was. Color my ass happy, man. I'm in his environment. And then it just escalated from there.
That starts a 2-decade journey with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it started, right?
Yeah.
And I had a military background and a security background, so they put me on the security team to help take care of Tony's celebrities. And then
that's where you met Dave Sanderson.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah, that's where I met Dave Sanderson.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's up, Dave?
Yeah, Dave, what's up, man? My brother over there, man.
We got to get Dave out here.
Yeah, I love him to death. We're doing a lot of stuff together, man. He's a beautiful human being. And then, I lived on a farm, so I knew the difference between hickory, oak, and locust, and hardwoods, and this, and I knew how to log splitter. I knew how to use a hatchet and kindling and all that. They put me on the fire team. And man, that was the home. I was like, wow, I get to see logistically how do you firewalk 9,000 people, right? So once I got there, it was a short time thereafter. It was interesting. When you first get in the environment, you're a volunteer, so you got to spend the money, right? You got to pay to be there.
It's pay to play. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm spending whatever, $1,500 a crack, and my wife's sitting at home going, who the hell is Tony Robbins? Right? He's spending $1,500, $1,000 every time he goes. And she didn't know. She had no references. Well, they did something smart. When they offered me the subcontracting position, they said, oh, by the way, you have a free ticket. So bring your spouse. So I did. I took Stacia, and she went. And after she graduated, we were walking on the beach together in Fort Lauderdale. And she turned to me and she goes, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I see. You want to go roll with this guy, man? He's amazing. He's a badass. Let's go. As long as they're paying for it. We don't have to take money out of our own account. And so that all happened. That was all going down in 1995, 1996. 2003 rolls around, and Robbins offered me the captain's position, which I would take over all of his firewalks globally. And I had a bit of a challenge with it because I homeschooled the kids, right? And they didn't miss a beat. They're like, hey, we'll pay to have your kids go on the road with us. And so there was Davey and Vinny at the age of 6 and 9, man. They were on the road with their dad and their mom, and Tony Robbins traveling around the world. So that went down in 2003. 2005 rolls along. We go to London, and that's where we set the world record. That's where we firewalked 12,300 people at the Docklands, at the Excel Center in the west side of London. And when I say world record too, Matt, I want to disclose, Guinness was not there, right? They just, but that's the largest firewalk that's ever been done in the world. And the only thing that's come close to that is another Tony Robbins seminar where we walked 10,000 or 9,000 or whatever. So that all went down then. And then in 2014, man, I'm driving down the road. My phone rings, and it's Google. They're like, hey, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? I'm like, yeah, what can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. I'm like, well, color my ass happy. Homeboy's a free agent, man. What you got, right? And so that was it, man. Next thing I know, I'm in Mountain View with 148 Google executives on stage. We ended up
Did you think at that point, I want to interrupt because we just had open coffee bar, like right before this. So we're jacked on coffee.
Yeah, we are jacked
and you
on
shared,
coffee.
Didn't you ask what their budget was? And they kind of scribbled it down for you. And you're like,
so
I can work with that.
You want to do this? Great. What's your budget? And they went, yeah, that. And I went, oh, I can work with you guys.
Did you, the entrepreneurial part of you, right? Like you're just doing this out of like passion and love and life changing and, mentoring. You're like, that's a business right there. Did you know that then? Was there that realization?
At some level, I probably did, but not
in 2024 with this amazing company.
Well, I tell you where it did though is once I got there and I did it. We had a luncheon, and I'm sitting there at the table with some other execs, and one of the women turned to me and she said, "Hey, you don't really even have your own business at this point, do you?" I was like, "Well, technically no, but." And she said, "Look, I'm not here to tell you what you do, but you may want to think about starting your own business because there's a huge marketplace for you." Yeah. She said, "Corporate America will eat you alive." Because they're looking for somebody that can create the paradigm shift. They're tired of public speakers getting up there talking blah, 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 and this and that, and, going on scavenger hunts and golfing and all that bunch of worthless shit that doesn't change anybody's life. You have the ability to completely create the paradigm shift. So that's when I said, okay. So in 2014, that's when Firewalk Productions was born, and she was right because shortly after that, I'm at NASA. And then I'm at Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and then Remax, and Heineken, and Microsoft. And
if you've got junk in your life or business that you need removed, reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts. They are a full-service junk removal company, and they'll be able to take care of you at your home or your business to get rid of whatever you don't want. Check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. As a small business owner, one of the things we will always need to address is a space to run our business. If you're looking to do a small tenant finish, maybe even build a building from the ground up, you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. They are a full-service commercial contractor that can take care of your business needs to build the space and place of your dreams to run your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. If you're a Christian small business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. They are a Christian peer advisory community here in Northern Colorado and the Front Range that is designed to give you encouragement, support, and insight to grow your business with other like-minded Christian business owners. Not only are they a sponsor and a partner of this podcast, but I'm also a member of their community. Check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com.
Next thing I know, here I am, painted baby Matt Shoup, in Denver on your podcast, right? I mean, you just don't know. Yeah. You don't know where that's going to take you.
It's cool how just all those dots connect. So you travel the world with Tony. I mean, you guys, when you were with Tony, right? You walked Oprah, Usher. I mean,
the team,
tens of thousands.
We walked. You name it. I've lost count.
And then you were talking at Coffee Bar. We have small groups out every couple of weeks. Local business owners. They just share their story, and you're like, the corporate gigs are cool. But it's a lot of people coming through. And then you started talking about the sweet spot, these, these small local growing mom and pop local regional companies where you just get to hang out and meet these people. But I want to make sure, because we're holy cow, we got just a little bit left, man. Time-wise, but I want to make sure we have a lot of time to talk about the big sweet spot and the passion project of what you're doing with that. I want to make sure we have enough time for that. So just working with big corporations, small businesses, but talk a little bit about Miss Earl. And meeting her and just kind of how that shifted. Well, no,
it was your fault. I'm blaming you consciously because you're the one that got me into podcasting.
Okay. What's up, Alex? Alex was on the show.
Yeah, Alex. Where is Alex? There's Alex.
Podmatch. This dude, Alex, right?
Great. Podmatch. What an incredible. You want a podcast, you don't think it can happen? Go to Podmatch, man.
Dating app for guests and hosts.
Oh, yeah.
You get a little profile.
It's totally
You swiped on a bunch of people and you found her podcast.
And what we recorded because of you, I've recorded like 180 podcasts in the last year, a little over a year, since April of last year. So I recorded, and after we recorded, I'm sitting there and we're talking sidebar, and Natalia says, "So David, have you ever done a firewalk for veterans?" And I said, "You mean specifically?" And she said, "Yeah." And I go, "No, why? What's going on?" She said, "Well, you know what the suicide rate is, don't you?" And I go, "Yeah, I've heard it's like 22 a day." She goes, "No, David, that's not even close. That's only if they leave a note." And I went, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me." She goes, "Yeah, it's up closer to the high 40s, 50 a day. A day." Well, I'm a vet, and I grew up during Vietnam, and my dad was Bob that raised me, was a highly decorated officer in World War II and all that, and so I went, "Okay, you got my interest. I'm all in. I'm in. What do we need to do?" And so I said, "Could you give me a couple of days to think about this so I can get this in my head?" And I went to bed that night, Matt, and as you know, I woke up that night, and it was like so clear to me, just so crystal clear, Operation Do No Harm. And I also realized that there were 3 other categories of people, not just vets, but we have first responders, we have single mothers who I was born to, and then kids that have been neglected and abused. And so that's where, that was born. So right now we're working on getting the 501c3 with all that together. So now I can offer corporate America something a little different, right? Whereas before they would just come hire me. I'd say, "So what's going on? Why the firewalk?" "Well, we're launching a new product."
Sales are down.
Yeah, sales are down.
That's great. That's a problem, but
morale's down, dissension's down. They're fighting about masks. They're fighting about political shit. That doesn't mean anything. I talked about last night. There's 3 things that people need to focus on the questions that go on our heads on a regular basis. Question 1, what you have or what you don't have. Okay, so if you're focusing on what you have, that can create gratitude. If you focus on what you don't have, then you can look at it and go, "Oh, wow. Number 1, if I don't have any food, maybe it's time to get up off my ass and go do something about that," or whatever that can lead you in that direction. And the other one is, it's like, okay, so where are you in terms of not only what you have or what you don't have, but what you, from the standpoint of, how do I say this?
Where are you living?
Well, yeah. Where are you spending your time? Are you in the past? You're in the present? Are you in the future? And then again, man, it just boils down to those 3 questions. If you challenge yourself with those, you'll find that it really helps bring things around to being in the moment. It's kind of like, Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, staying in that moment. So anyway, that just led to, where we are today with the whole thing going on. I was on another podcast, and Ed Perricott, who is the president of the Sunshine Rotary in Modesto, and he said, "Hey man, my Rotary will hire you right now. Let's come to Modesto and let's do an event." So we did. That was on April 13th and 14th, I think it was, of this last year. It was incredible. Dave Sanderson came out and spoke, which was phenomenal. Thank you, Dave, for that. It was amazing. We also had Jamie Reed for C3 Insurance, CEO. Phenomenal guy, phenomenal experience. He's doing a ton of work with veterans. Thank you, Jamie. You rock. We had all the gang, Ryan and Jessica from the American Weed Company. And so they're focusing on creating a peptide so that gummies and this kind of things, when you give them to vets and people that are struggling with depression and PTSD, that this is a very consistent product. And that was all about the peptide. And they've done a phenomenal job. So I want to thank to Joe and Ryan and Jessica for coming to that. They brought their video team. They did a phenomenal job. And now we've got the attention, we believe, of Gallo Wine. And so, we'd be happy to work with Gallo because they have one of their wines is called the Barefoot Wine Company. Right? Because when we're not doing firewalks, we're doing glass walks.
Yeah.
Right? Because we do the glass walk and then we do that because sometimes logistically it's not always possible to do the firewalk. So we set up the glass walk experience for that because that can be done indoors and you don't need, all the logistics that goes with that. So, we'll see where that takes us. But yeah, we got a lot of momentum and Operation Do No Harm is coming and it's coming strong, man.
So basically what will happen is you'll reach out to, other companies that would maybe normally hire you to do something for them. They'll hire you to go do something for a group.
Yeah,
they want to serve, right?
Yeah,
they'll be able
exactly.
to contribute to the nonprofit. And
Yeah,
get
so
you
I
out
can
in
give
front of
them
more people.
I can give them the option. Like, so what do you want to do? I always ask them, why are you hiring us? Well, we're doing this. We're launching a product, whatever. All right, well, here's an option for you. So you could make a donation to Operation Do No Harm. That's a 501c3, and so it's a write-off. And then Operation Do No Harm will hire Firewalk Productions. We'll come in and do the work for your team. However, you could invite, which one of those 4 categories resonates with you? You want to do something for vets or first responders, kids, moms, whatever? Great. Invite them to the whole function. Yeah. Then your people are going to get to see that and be part of that energy. And the actual idea that, hey, we could have just saved a bunch of kids' lives. Yeah. Right? So they get to be part of that. So, we do this on a Saturday. When your team comes to work on Monday morning, you got a different group of people, for sure. So, yeah, there's that dynamic that's going on with that as well.
That's awesome, man. I love that. So over the decades and decades that you've been in this space, somebody who's sitting there struggling, they're done, they're fed up, they don't want to keep going. What have been just some of the biggest takeaways and lessons and things you'd share with them other than what you've already shared?
Well, I think the 2 most important times in anybody's life is the moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. So that's part of it. I ask this question all the time, Matt. I say to people, so why don't people get what they want in life? Well, there's a story you tell yourself of why you can or you can't have it, right? I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. Don't have the background. And that's a story. Like one of the things that I do when I'm at my seminars, I put a picture of a guy behind me if I can, and he's standing in a location, right? And I don't say anything about it. I go over 20, 25 minutes, and then I'll say, by the way, who here could tell me where my friend's standing? And there's inevitably somebody raise their hand and go, Mount Everest. I go, that's correct. Now, here's what you need to know about Eric. He has climbed the 7 highest mountains on earth, and he got to the summit of all 7. But here's what you don't know about Eric. He's blind. So if a blind man can climb the 7 highest mountains on earth, the other part of it, I think Viktor Frankl gave us one of the greatest books, one of the greatest messages of anybody other than obviously Jesus Christ and others, right? He wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a hard read, man. But he was in Auschwitz, and they took everything from him. They assassinated his family. You're in a concentration camp. You're naked. You may not have eaten for days. You're standing in the cold. Every single second of your life, you don't know that you're next. And you're hearing the screams coming every single day. So you can imagine how much pressure is on you. But here's what Victor figured out, man. He figured out there's one thing you can't take from me. I have to relinquish this. And that was his attitude. And so he said, someone has to get out of here to tell this story. And that's what he did. So I kind of say that to people that you don't think someone has to tell your story. Yeah. What's your story? Because you know this, Matt. We're on a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people, and I was listening to a couple of people here today. And, they were talking about their success and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, nobody cares. I mean, they care, but we don't care. You know what people want to hear? They want to hear about your struggles and how you overcame them. That's tangible. That's something we can use every day in life, right?
Yeah. Well, a gentleman that was up here and he gave a great presentation. I'm like, that's great. It's a great reason. Then he comes down and he's like, hey, man, he goes, here's what was going on. And he shared the real story.
The real story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to share the real story.
Got to share the real story. That vulnerability, that book right there. And you did it right there. When you called me on the phone and go, hey, man, I'm going to do a book. And I'm like, yeah, what's the name of the book? Painted Baby. I'm going, wait, Imity painting, Painted Baby. Well, what did you do?
Yeah.
And the fact that you came and told this and pointed this out to entrepreneurs, man, stop hiding that dark little secret that you have about your business. Because if you're like you said, man, what happens if you're your biggest competitor? What happens when they find it out? What are they going to do with it? Yeah. Don't give them a chance.
When they ask what it is, I go, hey, if you think of your worst story, that if your competition got a hold of this and they crafted it and they positioned it into their sales pitch and then told all of your potential customers about you, what would that do to your business? I mean, I asked a guy last night, front row.
Yeah.
He's sitting here and he's like, that would be bad.
That would be bad, he said, yeah.
And then this other kid raises his hand, like little kid, and he goes, can we break boards now?
Can we break boards?
I don't care about this talk.
I care about that, man. Let's get to the board
and then
break.
You grab that and then you go share it first. And nobody's got anything on you.
Yeah.
And you control the narrative. You show that you're human, and it lets the other people's guard down. We live in such a crazy world of everybody posturing and painting perfect pictures.
It's back to that other third question is, what two things, like what you can control, what you can't control. Everybody wants to focus on so much of what they can't control today. What Biden's doing or what Trump's doing or what. Can you control any of that? No, you cannot. But what you can do is waste a lot of time and a lot of energy and get yourself in a really bad place thinking that you can control it because you can't. You just can't, man. So focus on the stuff that you can control, something you can do about. I say it all the time, look for magical moments, man. And if you can't find them, make them. Because that's a really part. I do stuff. You know me, man. I do stuff like this all the time. I love to go to a Walmart, for example, and connect with the cashier, and I'll stand at the candy and I'll look at all the different candies, and I'll go, hey, what's your favorite candy? And she'll say Reese's peanut butter. Oh, great. So I grab 2 of them, and then I pay for my stuff, and then I ring them the Reese's up separately, and I'll say, give me 2 receipts. And then so they do that, and I get 2 receipts, and then I take the Reese's and I put them in a bag. I take the receipt, put it in there, and when I walk out, I just hand them to the clerk and walk out. Don't say a word. I'll just say anything. They just look at me like, what? Why? Well, because I'm doing that as much for me, man, as I'm doing it for them. Yeah. I mean, let's be candid about it. Yeah. It feels amazing to do stuff like that, and I'm good with that.
Love it. Well, man, dude, we're wrapping up our time today.
Yeah.
Love that you flew all the way out here for the firewalk last night.
Thanks for coming last night, man.
Hanging here. We spent a lot of time. We wrap the podcast up same way. Every episode you grabbed. Is that your favorite color?
This is
one of them.
It's one of my favorite colors, yeah.
And everybody shares the statement they want to leave with the world when they leave it. What do you got?
I painted the shutters at my house on the farm with the kids. So my kids are going to love this. If that's the color, they're going to be laughing right now. They're going, oh, Dad, that's almost the exact color I painted the show. What's it say there, man? It says, stop looking for heroes and be one.
Dave Albin, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Are you a faith-based father and you want to have the adventure of a lifetime with your son? You have to check out the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. June of 2025, I'm going to be taking a small group of fathers and sons over to Spain. We are going to spend 6 days, hike 70 miles, have some of Spain's most amazing cuisines, see some of the most beautiful places and spaces, but most importantly, spend time together bonding with our sons. If you're interested in this adventure, check out mattshoup.com. When you get to the website, click the Gentle Art of Leadership button and hover down to the Father-Son Hike of a Lifetime.